Hello everybody and welcome to another thought video here. So once again, this new thought video is going to be for like a short minute or two, but I just want to share my thoughts about some of the Heisei Godzilla films were now added to the Criterion streaming channel. That Criterion just announced like back in July, and they're now in the Criterion channel of the Return of Godzilla, which I did a panel about it back in G-Fest a few months ago. If you haven't noticed, be sure to check out that video out by clicking in the link in the description down below. And also along with Godzilla versus Biollante versus King Ghidorah and versus Mothra. That's now in the Criterion channel. So I knew I had this feeling that Criterion that it's gonna be added some of the Godzilla era series of Heisei or Millennium, but so far they just brought some of the rise of some of the Heisei era films so far, like the four films I just told you about it. And I was shocked. I mean, it makes me have this feeling that Criterion might be releasing the whole Heisei era Godzilla films, all 7 films together on Blu-ray somehow later in the future. But who knows? I mean, and when I heard this announcement, of Criterion made announcement of it, and I was hoping, like, since they added the Return of Godzilla to their streaming channel, I was hoping if they're gonna add it to the American cut version of the film Godzilla 1985, which is my very first Toho Godzilla film from my childhood, the one that starred Raymond Burr. I was hoping they were added that to it, but sadly Criterion didn't add it. But maybe because of right issues or something. And just a few days ago or weeks ago and I heard I heard from one of my buddies that Max, also known as HBO Max, that used to be called, that they're gonna add they're gonna add the Heisei Godzilla films to Max, which they just now did a few days ago. So far, they only just added the Return of Godzilla, Biollante, and King Ghidorah in it, but not versus Mothra. That is still in the Criterion channel, and so far they like I and I and I know I just went on Max to see if they're all 3 films were in it, and they did. It was like, wow. And I was so surprised that they all been restored to that Criterion and Max had added these 3 films, but in their original Japanese cuts, like the Japanese credits, and I know that back then that Sony that owns some of the rights to the Heisei Godzilla films and the whole Millennium Godzilla films. And when Sony owns the rights of those films, is when you watch those versions, I mean, on your Blu-ray or DVDs, and when the opening credits, they only shows like the English credits and those, you know what I'm talking about, the ones from your childhood, the ones that you grown up with, and even I grown up with the DVDs and Blu-rays. But for Max and Criterion, they just bought the whole films in their original Japanese credits and in their cuts, and it's all in Japanese language, and so far there's no like international English dub so far. I mean, And I'm just glad that Criterion and Max added to those films on their streaming channel. And I want to share another thought. Like, will Criterion added the whole Heisei Godzilla films and Millennium Era, it is all together in their whole streaming channel, and the re-releasing them on Blu-ray in the future, since Criterion owns the rights for the 4 films so far from the Heisei era. I mean, when I heard this, I was like, hopefully their Criterion will release them on Blu-ray, the whole complete collection. Let's just hope. I mean, and I was hoping, like, since they also added to the Return of Godzilla, also known as Godzilla 1985, I mean, and I was hoping for the Blu-ray, I was hoping if they're gonna also add both the international English dub audio for it and the US cut of the film too, kind of like what Criterion did for they add to Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the US cut of the original 54 that starring Raymond Burr. But hopefully Criterion will add to the Godzilla 1985 US cut, the one with Raymond Burr, the one from my childhood. Let's just hope they will add to that film too, because yeah, back then, like, I know back in my panel that I talked about the Return of Godzilla, and I did mention, me and my buddies did mention about the VHS and collectibles of home videos, that this film was never, that the US cut was never released on DVD or Blu-ray. I mean, and like, we were just feeling hopeless that it was never going to be released. But so far, I mean, back then it has been released on VHS a few times back in the 80s and 90s, and for their new home video releases. I mean, and I know that the home video you used to rent it on VHS on my local video store, that I explained that in my panel, and we never got, we was hopefully we're never gonna get an official Blu-ray release, the official Blu-ray release of the US cut. But since Criterion bought the rights to the Return of Godzilla, like, hopefully they will add the 1985 version to their Heisei era Blu-ray collection, someday later in the future, maybe next year or the following year. But who knows? I mean, that is my thoughts for it for now. I mean, so I'm just glad Max and Criterion added those films on their streaming channel, and I know that Max didn't add the Versus Mothra film, which is my second Toho Godzilla film. So that's all I have thoughts about it so far. So I just want to say to y'all, thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought videos and podcast episodes coming soon.